Okay, welcome to the final presentation for today's Drop of Pin Dialogues. I'm Christina Ledesma, and as mentioned, I'm an artist, writer, and editor of Philip Magazine. I also teach here at CCA. And I'm very honored today to introduce you to Kim Hong-sok from the collective Xijing, which we'll talk about today. And also, Linda Che is the translator who's going to be working with us. So I'll introduce him first and then we'll do a presentation. Okay, so as you know, he's a member of this collective and he's based in Seoul. The collective also includes Chen Xiaoshang, sorry I'm getting the names probably wrong, who lives in Beijing, and Tsuyoshi Ozawa of Tokyo. Kim Hong-sok graduated with a bachelor's degree in fine arts from Seoul National University and then studied at the Kunstacademy in Düsseldorf from 1992 to 1996. Chen Xiaoshang graduated from the print department of the Guangzhou Academy of Fine Arts in 1984. In 1990, he formed the Big-tailed Elephant Group with the artists Lin Yilin, Leng Zhubi, and Shu Tan. Tsuyoshi Ozawa completed his undergraduate and postgraduate studies at Tokyo National University of Fine Arts and Music. He has completed residencies with the Asian Cultural Council in New York and the Agency for Cultural Affairs in Japan. Okay, so turn it over to you.
Okay, it's my great pleasure to have a presentation here. And actually my English is not so good, but I try to explain in English at first, and then if I have a problem, and then I toss the microphone. And actually I studied in Germany for a long time, but I forgot the German language because I mostly stayed in Seoul and Korea. And then also I studied English when I was in high school, and was just start to do my English better. Anyway.
So far away.
Yeah.
Good. The Xijing collective actually worked from the 2007 to present, and we actually realized 4 different projects. And one guy is come from the Japan, one guy is come from the Korea, the last one come from the China, for example. And these three countries. Actually, the people say call that is extreme East Asia, but I think so. 3 countries unfortunately never happy with relationship because they have always conflict and many wars and many problems. But when I meet one Chinese artist and Japanese artist, I'm always happy because of our communication. Because that means we use very strange language because we have all languages in Chinese and Korean and Japanese, totally different language system. But I don't understand the Chinese. But we are using very strange Xijing English, and so we can be very happy. For example, we realized 4 different projects. First one is Xijing. The second project was this is Xijing. And the first project is actually Xijing is non-existent cities in the world. But the meaning of the Xijing is actually Chinese pronounced, but the meaning of the Xijing is West capital. But the Tokyo is the meaning of Tokyo is East capital, and the meaning of Beijing is North capital. The Nanjing is the Chinese city in southern part of China. It's also the meaning of the Nanjing is South capital. But there are no West capital in Asia anymore. But probably long time ago there was a West capital in Asia, in Korea, in Japan, in China, or even in Vietnam. And we just want to make one research project to find the West capital in Asia. That is chapter 1, project 1, Xijing. And then second project, and then we just make more concrete details of Xijing. to the West capital. And then we made one puppet there. The third project is welcome to Xijing. That is more we understood what is the West capital is. And then we make a concrete details to make this project. And then we actually organized one Olympic Games and then we established one Xijing school. Last chapter is, that we understood the Xijing, the concept of the Xijing, and then we try to become everyday president. And then, for example, each member of the Xijing actually, this built one of the constitutions and the law and the systems and everything, the education system, military service, everything. And the last, the project was the Xijing Innovation Service. That is, we completed this project last year for Gwangju Biennale in Korea. And then we just want to talk about the innovation service for entering the Xijing countries. Okay, the chapter 1, Xijing. For example, we actually to realize this project, we anyhow need a research about the Xijing. And then one Chinese artist, Chen Xiaoshan, really want to something about the Xijing's information, but he went to the Hainan Island at the south part of China. I think so he want to have a vacation with his family. And he went to the very touristic the island. And then after the Japanese artist, the Ozawa exhibition, he also heard about the Chinese artist's story. And then, okay, I moved also to Okinawa Island. That is also very touristic, the island. But anyway, so my case is totally different because at the time I was alone. I have no family. I didn't marry yet. And I have my own family. And okay, I go to the west part. And then I went to the Yeongjong Island, where the Incheon International Airport is. And I visited. That is Hainan Island, very what is that? Yeah, anyway. Okinawa Island is Yeongjong Island. Very familiar for me. It's Yeongjong Island. This is the video still of my work. Also, video still. And then, finally we made 3 different videos, 3 channel videos. And then, this project was invited by the Arts and Science over 2007. That is the item of the first project. I found this object from the Yeongjong Island. For example, that the yellow tower is actually this fictional story, but I just wrote one stories on the meaning of the yellow tower. I gave the title this Yellow Sweat Trophy. I wrote some stories. Okay, there is one scene of exhibitions in Long March Space in Beijing 2007. And the Guangdong Museum of Art in Guangzhou, China, 2007. And then 1 year later, this work was invited Limerick City Gallery of Ireland, 2008. Okay, anyways, people always ask me how do Xijing men communicate each other, and then we invented, for example, Xijing English. For example, one day the Chen Xiaoshan, the Chinese artist, called my girlfriend. Now I'm married with my girlfriend, she became my wife. But before I married, he asked me, where is your long woman? But there is, my wife is very taller than me. He thought it's tall woman, but he never called my wife, my girlfriend, her name, he always called long woman. But I understood. So that is what the meaning is. Also, the Japanese artist Tsuyoshi Ozawa always answered maybe. He loved the word of maybe. And one day I asked Ozawa Tsuyoshi, how about my idea? And then he answered maybe. That means probably I like it, probably I don't like it, but I respect your idea. That is the meaning of the maybe. But we can communicate very easily like that. Okay. So as I explained, so the three country has a very bad, very unhappy history. But I don't know exactly the history of China. I don't know exactly the history of Japan. But so I know I can just introduce in Korean history. You know, this after World War II, the Korean finally tried to industrialize, and that means Korea was just before the World War II. Korea was an agricultural country, nothing, no industry, just farmers and just king, and not modernized. But after the war, the World War II, and then so we just started to make our nation, and then we need to import everything. But I think so. There are many new countries like Korea also have a same history like Korea, and then we imported many things. For example, the constitutions or education or military service, police from the United States or from the European countries or from the Japan. And then we call that this model copy references. And then that means everything is we copy and import everything. And then we need the translations. For example, when I was young, I always visited when I want to see the Hollywood movie. I go to movie theater, and I always see the movie with Korean subtitle. That is always my imagine. Always the American movies with Korean subtitle. And then that is the translation. That is movie translation. But we translated everything. For example, military system or the education system. And then we call that is Koreanized interpretations. And then we believe that is Korean identity. But I think that is not Korean identity. That is real hybridity. And then that is Korean identity. I love that because there is I was educated from the high school. Korea is 5,000 years old country. No one believed that, but anyway, 5,000 years old. But so I think probably we have a Korean identity, but I can find a Korean identity because before the World War II, we have a different name. Joseon is different name of the country, and then probably we don't deny that the Joseon history. But how can I list that? So. How can I define my country? And then, but I think so. Korean is the hybrid, typical type of hybridity. The photos actually very familiar for me because there is a scene of Korean university in 1980s. At the time, I also was a student, and I always studied in campus. Like this kind of surrounding, this kind of, that is not military, it is police. Because every day the students had a protest against the Korean government because Korean government always suppressed the Korean laborers and students. And then students always protested against the Korean government. Those also very typical photos in Korea 1980s. Many young people, Korean young people in 20s actually worked in the factories as a laborer because they are not educated and they are very poor and they need the money, and then they were hired from the normal factories. It's very normal things. I made this diagram to expand my idea. For example, there is between the communities or between the individuals, there are three types of the relationship. One is consensus, one is conflict, one is severance. That means, why the students always have a protest every day? Because the students community never understand the government community. Because the Korean government want to have a modernization of Korea. But students really want to have, first of all, the democracy. But the government, no. Actually, first, we need modernization. But always, every day, they protest. That means there's conflict between the students' community and then, first, the government community. That is my stupid theory, but anyway, you don't need to understand everything because I don't know my theory too. And also, there is also the students also visited the factories to educate the young labor to improve their own human rights and they improve their labor conditions. But so at the time I was a student also, I thought students' ideas is right and then the government idea is very bad, very evil. And then, okay, we have to they visit the factory to communicate with young labor, and to improve their labor conditions. And then I thought that is practicing right way. But that means also the students, between students and the laborer have a kind of consensus. It's a good thing, good deal, very good deal. But later, 20 years later, I slowly doubt it was a really right thing or right way because the laborers became a kind of a monster because they have a big power after that. Now is the labor became most powerful big world in Korea. And they have also make a different another alliance.
Alliance?
Yeah, alliances. This always repeat and repeat. Okay, I'll skip this explanation because it's too long story. And the next time, sorry, because this okay. But the concept of this Xijing man is actually impossibility of translations. That means also the Korean modernization is the same thing and the hybridity. There is typical Korean architecture in 80s and 90s. That is hotel, but looks like Victorian or what is the romanticism or many things, but Western styles, not Korean style. Yeah, there's a hybrid buildings. I hate this, but there's real things. We can find this kind of building in Korea everywhere. But we call that is that is nice, that is beautiful. There is a wedding house, the inside of the wedding house. I think so 90% of the Korean young couple really have a marriage with this kind of the environment because they love this kind of the environment. I don't know why, because I don't like this. But so it looks like Western style or looks like, I don't know exactly, but Japanese style, I don't know. But so all mixed. Since Korean War, after the Korean War, so we import many Western opera. There's Korean actors and actresses, so have the very nice costumes, and then have a makeup look like Western characters. But when I saw this kind of the opera. And I was really shocked because they have, the relatively short height, and it was very strange for me because they pretend to be the Western people, but still in Korea there are many translated opera, and we can enjoy this, but we cannot think about the opposite side. For example, American actor and actress wearing the Korean costumes, and then so they have the makeup to be the Asian face, and then translated that means the English lyrics, but there is Korean song. I never have this kind of image, so that's my work actually. That is I made as a work. That is 2004. I made one video work. And I invited 5 different Korean friends, my friends, and they tried to sing the American and the French and British and then Japanese and the French anthems. But because I really understand what the meaning of the American anthem, and then they translated into Korean, and then that my friend sings American anthem with Korean text. Korean translated Korean lyric. I think so. There is American anthem, but in Korean. Also, I saw that the Robert Williams love in Korea. It's a shock. Wow, it's really real world, and I visited there. There's one company, and I saw that and take photos, and then I imitated same thing, and then like Polish. That is probably translations, different translations. Okay, I think so always have a conflict between the communities and between the individuals. That means they want to be different. They want to show that their own difference between, for example, I'm the artist, and then if I imitate Robert Williams, people think, oh, he's very stupid. But if I make a totally different one, and people think, that is Kim Il-sung's work, that means that people always allowed to have the difference between people and between communities, between nations, and everything. But there is something. There is between the difference. There is do you see that here? As in between. Sorry. What?
That's the one on the bottom.
Okay.
The one with the little picture on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. Okay. In between. And with Xijing and I also really respect the in-betweenness, the space of in-betweenness. That is very important because we always think about, people think about, okay, there is Korean, there is Japanese. But who cannot define the difference of this kind of the nationality or history? But probably we can find the in-betweens. Anyhow. And then, okay, too many my works, I skip this. Okay. For example, this is my new work, and I invited these 3 critics. And that is my work. When left one is paintings, the right one is the sculptures. The left one is I hired the one workers, and then just one day. And I paid around this one day almost $100. And then I poured one paint on the lacquer, so on the canvas. And then the workers just the what is that? White make it with more paint. And I paid $100. And this is my painting. And the right one is just my self-portrait. Yes, a self-statue. And then I asked to make one critics from the 3 different real critics. And then they write the wrong critics, wrong essay, and then they had the lectures about this. Look at that. But it belong to me or belong to them? The writing, the essays belong to them. But so if that is my work, and if I want to show this work in the United States, and then if I invite them, or the 3 guys belong to my work, or I don't know exactly. But there is typical in-between space. Yeah, how can I define this? Okay. And then this the second project, this is Xijing, Journey to the West. And then we actually refer to the old Chinese fairy tale, The Journey to the West. And also we mixed with Alice in Wonderland. And we made many characters. And the puppet there is sold. And then we went to the theatre Liverpool in England, and then they interpreted different characters, and they made this kind of theater, the shadow theater. And then in Japan, and the puppet theater professional team made totally different characters, and they made this. And then the chapter 3, Xijing Olympics. And then it was in 2008, and then we had the idea, okay, we go to the Beijing because they had a real Olympic game in 2008 in Beijing. And we really went there, and then we had the same day, we have a real games. And then too much delay with the cigarette. And finally, night in Olympic Games, and we after that we had a barbecue party. And the first day, the hours to 9, and then we started the shooting. And then the gun was the bread, and then the football was hammer. And when we she's my wife. Yeah. Finally. Okay. Next step. Shuffle and X. Okay. Measure what is it? Distance. Table tennis, synchronized with our own shoes. Cycling. So I want to one. Okay, diving. We made 3 swimmers, divers as rice paper, and then falling. river, and then you play with the video camera, and trampoline, boxing in the massage club. The uniform is not belong to us, the uniform belong to massage club in China. Pajama. Dancing is, there is a, what is it, brush, the painting brush, and then
Whoever laughs first loses.
basketball, we have a break, have a lunch or something. Swimming. And then triathlon, bicycle, and the running, okay, and then swimming. Marathon, last day, we slept too long. Another tournament, and I got the yellow medal, and then Chen Xiaoshan got the red medal, and Ozawa Shosha the green medal. Different, yeah. It's installation. Okay, and then many years later, we established a Xijing school in Kansas City. And then we made 3 different classes. First one is language and philosophy, mathematics and music, sports, science and history. Actually, I teach the mathematics and sports. That was my idea. And the language is, we just try to communicate just drawings. And then first, for example, first man is to make a drawing on the floor, and the second man understood the drawings, and then one more drawings. Just the drawing communications. Philosophy is just sleeping. Mathematics is exchange items. And music is the singing one by one. And the last, we just introduce our song, and then probably
So each people would sing the song, and then the last one would compare their song with the first one to see if it's similar.
sports is my idea, learn massage. And then after that we give a massage to the tree and walls and chairs and every object. Science is in a sense a rocket to the sky. And the history is Chen Xiaoshan's idea, and that is just drinking alcohol. And the total things are totally wrong. Okay, that is my work, and then actually that is a little bit very long story, and then I need the help.
Okay, I'm going to read the translation of this piece. This work was invited to the Korea's 2006 Gwangju Biennial. I based this performance work on the speech of former U.S. President John F. Kennedy called Ich bin Berliner during his visit to Berlin in 1963. Korea is one of the unique countries coexisting both with democratic and communist ideology, and accordingly, I thought Kennedy's speech would be very appropriate for a city of Gwangju, which tends to be sensitive to the ideology contained in the speech. I translated the speech and asked that an administrative office, I asked that a proficient orator to make the speech. I entrusted Gwangju Biennale Administrative Office to proceed with the plan. At the time, I asked for one condition, that the orator be young, underage person, and not an adult. Gwangju Biennial Administrative Office introduced me to a 12-year-old child, and the parent of the child consented and was present on the day of the videotaping of the child performing the speech. I completed the video as my work. On the day of the biennial opening, I heard a familiar sound, as in the picture on the right. Without my consent, the child was performing the Kennedy speech somewhere on the opening night of the biennial. I found out that the child's parents requested it and the biennial administrators complied. They did not ask for my consent. I felt very sorry for the child working hard to deliver the speech and could not ask him to stop the performance. I just listened to the speech. However, an audience suddenly screamed out and halted the performance and asked for the artist who planned the performance. I was very flustered, but I identified myself, and the audience member harshly admonished me for mistreating the child in such hot weather. I apologized and halted the performance. This event gave me a warning and to be careful when participating in art.
Okay, this is real story, and when I thought this, when I have this kind of experience, I thought about my beginning of my drawings. For example, between the community and community problems, and then because I want to educate some people. That was my big mistake. And then was the response of the audience was totally different. And then I think about how the artist should be a good attitude. What is good things? For example, I want to really communicate with real audience through my work. But sometimes artists want to handle with realistic things. For example, history or realistic event or many things. As a documentary film or as a video works or as a performance or as an interview, as a publishing the books or many things. But sometimes we have a mistake, big mistake, because we need to be an ethical attitude. What is good things? And because between me and the young boy have no communications. And then I want to show this, but the result was bad. And then I changed my way. For example, I made one sculptures, but I wrote this. But it is really fake. But people think there is real things because I wrote the story there, and people think, oh, there's performance. Probably somebody inside here they perform something, but it's fake. For example, this thing, 10 things. Right, the Christians is the Iman Gil, is a North Korea born in labor, space, blah blah blah. I wrote this. People really believed it. And then I think, okay, there can be a very ethical attitude for audience. Please. And also, there's my solo show in Korea, and then nothing, no object, no paintings there. But I invited 5 different actors and actresses. And then I explained my work. And then the actor and actress explained my work to audience, and then just no object and no paintings. And that means probably there can be a very polite attitude or very equal attitude for the audience. That is my English is very bad. So actually, I also can understand. Very slowly, very slowly. Okay. There is performance in it. Every day, the audience visits this place, and then when they can hear my story, my work. Do you understand? You can understand. This dissolution continue for one and a half months. Also, I organized one dozen programs also. And then I actually communicated with the real docent and to explain my work. But I made a 3 different room, but exactly the same location, exactly the same work, and but totally 3 different stories. And I just teach them and then communicate with the docent, and then they explain totally different stories. One is about labor, one is about the manners, one is about metaphor. And this is our last chapter, last project. And then we want to explain the very concrete detail of Xijing. And then we actually, talk about agricultural productions and constitutions, urban planning and education, national defense and finance and economy. That is the history. That is agricultural production of Xijing. And then Ozawa's idea. That's my idea. Many laws here. The Hospitality Encouragement Act, the Antagonism Control Act, the Solitude Permission Act, the Equality Encouragement Act, and then the Thinking Development Act. The urban planning of Xijing we cut these things. Education. And the national defense. And the finance and economy. We printed our money as a tissue. Printed big money. And there's installations in the UN. And the immigration service. That is actually Chen Xiaoshen's idea, Chen Xiaoshen's script, and then he gave to the Ozawa Jewish, and the Ozawa Jewish made the videos. And then that is my idea, and I gave to Chen Xiaoshen. And then to make a passport, Xijing passport. Xijing passport is including many things, one water, and then photos, and the candies, and then the Xijing passport. Then the Tsuyoshi Ozawa actually gave me one idea, one script. It was very abstract, very difficult to understand, but I did. And the Chen Xiaoshen gave me a different script to explain the immigration policy of Xijing. And then I had to write something about the policy. It was a big word. And I gave Ozawa Tsuyoshi to this idea, immigration checkpoint in Xijing, and then if somebody wants to visit to Xijing, and then they have to sing or dance in front of the checkpoint. And then Tsuyoshi Ozawa gave the script to the Chen Xiaoshen, and then they talk about many things in Chinese and in Japanese. Okay. There is actually probably the explanation is not enough, but so actually we made 4 different projects. Actually, at first we have a plan to make 5 different projects, but the last one is still planning, and then we will make a final project someday. But we made just 4 different projects, and we will always make more stories. For example, one project has 3 different stories, and one also 4 different stories. We always happy about that, and we are always looking for the in-between space of in-between, and we always making a hybridity, the positive hybridity. Okay, Actually, thank you.
Okay, can you hear me in the back? Is it working? 감사합니다. Wow, it's nice to sort of end, I think, the afternoon and seeing some stories of collaboration and some good reality, I would say. Even though it's important to sort of understand some of the specific histories that we learned about today, it is also nice to end on a high note. So thank you. One of the first questions I had, of course, is the citing of the name Xijing, because it's this idea of the Western capital, and you all live in the east of East Asia, and as Lisa even pointed out, usually Asia is always identified with that particular region, which is the Far East. But you chose this idea of Western capital, and of course that brings up a lot of images and thoughts for me, just thinking the western edge of East Asia is a much more complicated place. Many, many peoples, languages, and yet not much is known. And so that was something I thought about, which is that Xijing is distinctly Asian, but it's not precisely Asian. And so I wondered if you could talk about this idea of being distinctly Asian, but not specifically Asian.
So the idea was just we found there are no Xijing, no West capital in Asia, literally. And but so we at the beginning we always think about what is the Western art, because when I was a student I actually learned the Western art history from my school. It was in 1980s, but I really learned the Western modernism art, both from Zio or Rodin and many artists about the Western artists. And also the Chen Xiaoshen, the Chinese artist, and then Ozawa Tsuyoshi also have the same experience, because they also learned the Western art history. It was very interesting. And then I asked the very traditional Japanese or Chinese art history, but they didn't know that exactly. That was very fun. And then I asked the Chen Xiaoshen and Ozawa Tsuyoshi, do we have to know real traditional Asian art history? Then they answered no, because they live here now and present. That is a reality. But if we have interest to learn the Korean or the Asian old history, we can start to learn. Why not? And then the Western is we have most of the Asian people really have a complex of the Western culture and Western history, because the Korea is colonized from the Japan more than 30 years, but Japan was actually westernized very fast in Asia. Japan has became very strong. And then the Asian people always think about the Western culture is the strongest, the strongest power in the world. But just this time. And but we didn't want to have a fight. We didn't want to have argue. We didn't want to have any kind of conflict between us. And how can you overcome the Western cultures or something? And okay, we think about both the West, yeah. And but not directly go to the Europe. We just to go to the Western area in Asia. That was our beginning idea, the first idea of our culture.
That's great that you also mentioned history, because it's related to the next question I'm going to. So I was watching this video from the Spencer Museum of Art when we were doing a residency in Kansas City, and the three collective members were all together in a summit for Xijing Land. And I'm going to bring up this quotation. I don't think you're going to like it very much. It's from your colleagues Yoshi. And funny because it's probably not surprising given all that we know about the complicated sort of tragic history between these three countries that you come from, that you don't want to talk about the past. So Xijing men have this sort of approach where they say they do not talk about the past, only the present and the future. And during this conversation, Tsuyoshi said something very funny. He says, yes, we think about past stuff, not the past. And at this point, poor Kim Hong-suk was like, oh, terrible joke, terrible joke. But I really like this quotation and this joke because I think there's something in there. And I think there's this experience of humor and also sharing a meal together that happens on a very intimate scale. And even though you showed some of the images from the work that you've done, like, I think these must be the children of some of your colleagues that you didn't mention, but it seems your families are very much involved with the realization of these works. So I think, this very intimate scale is tied up with things like thinking about Xijing as this mythical city in the region of Asia. We know it's Asia somewhere, but we don't know where exactly. So all these scales are very interesting, but your projects really get realized on a very small scale. And so maybe you can talk a little bit about this philosophy of working intimately and how you come together to work in that way.
So now it's many the artists they show the artwork based on reality. For example, the Asian country have a very complicated history, and then some Korean young artists always they make a movie or make a video work as a documentary, and then just for improvement of the better life. And but so in Xijing Man is actually make the fictional stories, but our life is reality, and then actually our fictional stories based on our real life. For example, always the project involve our families. Now they know my wife, and then still Chen Xiaoxiang called my wife a woman, but anyway, he knows my wife, and under our conditions, we proceed our project always. For example, that is the right, we always ask their families, the conditions of families, and then many details. That means we dialogue with the whole family. That is very important. Even though we don't speak English very well, but so we just anyhow communicate. For example, I send many photos someday. I also send the drawings, explaining my conditions, not just writing English like that. And then take photos or take drawings, scan the drawings and send the email. And then they understand my conditions. Okay. That is a real story. And then slowly we can make another idea. We can have a real idea. And that means we never make goals. We never make real goals to make artwork. And then we just every day we have a communicate together. And then slowly we can have a concrete idea for next project. And then, but problem is we don't want to finish our project, and then we always postpone to make our last project. But anyhow, so we always think that our idea, fictional idea, is actually based on our reality.
Okay, so now I want to turn to language and translation, since that seems to be a huge portion of what you're thinking about, and also how you work. And I was reading some theories of translation that argue when a translation takes place, it's actually not, first of all, there's never just one-to-one correspondence in language. That's one point. But the other point that's interesting to me about translation is that it's not like you take one language and then you put it into the other language, actually in that experience, what happens is both languages transform. So that at the same time, almost something new takes place. And so I think it's very interesting that translation is this way, I think, of getting at not only new identities, but new concepts, new relationships. And you say you think it's funny the way you get to learn about how your colleagues use English, but in another way, I think it's actually very serious too. And when it becomes very serious, I think what happens is it creates potentially radically new identities to speak in a new way, and this could, be taught, as you say. So it's funny to me that to see a school also brought the collective, because I think these ways of learning about the world and speaking about the world could potentially transform the history that we've inherited. So maybe you can talk a little bit about some serious aspects of the language or some examples that you experienced.
Actually, the artist is sometimes very important to present very important issues. For example, the translation is very important because in real world we have different nations, different races, and different languages and different history. And how can the people can communicate with peace? But actually, in reality, it's very sad. It's not peaceful. It's always fighting and arguing with each other. But because of translation. The translation is so very important. And then, in Korea, always translated from the Western cultures and Western history. But we sometimes misunderstood, and then we made also mistakes. That is not just Korea's program. There is many countries have the same programs. For example, the United States has misunderstood about Korean history and Korean the traditions, and then they could make a big mistake for Korean people. And then, but the translation is our destiny. How can we do that? We need a translation anyhow, but translation is very potential, the possibility to understand each other. Because, for example, if the one young boy wants to have a girlfriend, and then the boy actually understood perfect about the girl, for example, physically and mentally, everything. It's no imagination anymore. That's impossible. But for example, because of this, the impossibility of the translation, probably we can continue talk and talk. But just the attitude is very important. It means good attitude. Okay, to understand directly your thinking and then your history. That is very important. But the attitude is just people think it is just gestures and then just virtue. Yeah, virtue or like that. But not just virtue. There is kind of essence of human life. But people think that is always think about my positions and my thinking. But probably that is very related with the old the Chinese philosophy actually. But that is Confucius. Like that. Yeah. And but so the artist can propose this kind of things because each country or every nation need a real good detail of meanings to teach the people, to teach the students. Because, for example, every student they learn many things from the school, but to survive that society, For example, in elementary school, they learn their own history and the language, many things, to be a citizen of this country. Yeah? And then high school is more developed, and universities very developed and the thinking. But the nations always think about, okay, we need good people for our country, to keep our country, to better countries. And then they educated many things. So always the nations need very concrete, the details, always to teach the people. But no imagination anymore, because there is the perfect image. Yeah? But the artists always give a confusion to understand that it's meaning. To give that means this imagination, new imaginations, to understand that the coming new community or the coming new society. That is probably the duty of the artist.
Yeah, actually, I think it's Jacques Derrida who thinks that artists are translators always, that they have to work in that way. I like this idea too of knowing that translation is an impossibility because we always have to keep speaking. So it's actually an invitation for perpetual communication. So there's a nice opportunity there. It's not just a limitation. Okay, so I guess I have one last question. We'll turn it over to the rest of the audience. I know that you originally conceptualized this project in 5 chapters, and that you, as a group, knew very early on what the final chapter was going to be, but you don't want to say what it is because you don't want to finish the project. So I guess my question is, how long do you think it will be before you start the last project? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, but my daughter will continue our project. My daughter, probably next generation also. My daughter is now is 80 days old. But anyway.
Wow, okay. Okay, thank you. So I guess we'll open it up now to the rest of the audience. Do you have questions?
First of all, what a fantastic work. It's so great to discover you and learn about your work. I guess I have two questions. One is, are the other members of the collective making their own individual work? And are they artists? I don't know if you said that or not. The first one is it's very interesting when I look at I hate to generalize, but you can never escape from it. But looking at Korean art, usually there's such an attachment to the object, usually, and there's such a beautiful marriage between the concept and the object that happens with both the collective work almost and also your individual work. And there's almost this therapeutic sort of, psychological aspect to it. I was wondering if you had any kind of training, or what was the precedent for you and this collective working in this way, thinking about language and thinking about building a new reality in a very intimate way. Like, what was it that propelled that sort of this shift and then this continuation of the practice?
repeat questions.
I always ask you questions.
Okay. So, of course, the three members of the Xijing magazine, the work individually, and then the Ozawa is quite famous, the artist in the world, or the world artists. And Chen Xiaosheng also very famous artist in China and in Asia. And we actually met many times in different exhibitions from 2000. So, for example, we were separately invited to one very similar exhibitions in Asia and then sometimes in Europe. And then we knew each other, of course, since 2000. And one day, we three guys met one dinner, and then we talk about, I need your help. And then slowly we think, okay, I need also your help to realize our project. And then slowly we just give the help, and then, okay, why don't you make a new project with three guys? And then also one curators of the Mori Museum, the Mami Takauka, she also recommended us that, hey, you can make as a group and then make a new project. And that is the beginning. And also, but problem is, if we make some product and then we cannot keep this product anymore. Sometimes we have a product because, for example, using the puppet there, and then also we just the one with the professional puppet teams produced some puppets that we didn't make it, but so it was very attractive and very valuable. Yeah. And then we should anyhow keep the puppets. And I have puppets sometimes, and sometimes the Ozawa solution, and also keep the puppets. And otherwise, we don't want to make the object because it's not necessary. Because we just want to just talk with people with any kind of our performance and any kind of our dialogue. It's enough.